From the studios of 850 AM, WFTL in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, this is Outlaw, America's alternative voice, streaming around the world at outlawshow.com. This week we feature Women of Politics with guests Julie Carson, Lee Pearman, and Sherry McCartney, all city commissioners from South Florida. And now, your host for Outlaw, a former city commissioner himself, Dean Trantalis.
Okay, welcome back. This is Dean Trantalis with Outlaw, America's alternative voice. We've been talking with three very prominent women in the LGBT community and who currently hold positions as city commissioners in the towns in which they live. Lee Pearman from the city of Margate, and Julie Carson from Wilton Manors, and Sherry McCartney from Oakland Park. Lee, I want to ask you, now that you are a role model, well, don't laugh. Now that you are a role model for other members of the gay and lesbian community in Margate, do you feel that makes Margate an appealing place that people would want to move to now because they see an openness, a point of view of inclusion and understanding that your role now plays? Have you ever thought about it?
I've never.
Are there any gay people that live there today?
I honestly thought I was the only one, but there really are gay people that live in Margate, yes. A lot of times.
And you know both of them?
A lot of times they come have coffee with me, as a matter of fact. We actually have a great group of gay people that live in Margate that I'm slowly finding out about. But I will tell you, as a resident, I would probably be more inclined to move to a Wilton Manors or an Oakland Park just because I would feel a kinship. I feel a kinship with these two. The minute they got elected and I got elected, automatically it was like I felt like I knew them forever. And I didn't know them from Adam, but I automatically felt I did just because we had that one little connection.
Well, you're the first openly gay city commissioner in Margate, isn't that not
yes.
true? Right.
Yes.
So you have broken that barrier.
Yeah, that's gone.
So now the floodgates are open, and Margate's going to become ground zero for.
Now that's what they said during the campaign that
really?
My agenda was to make Margate like Wilton Manors, and we started figuring out the dollars and cents that Wilton Manors get. Well, that's not such a bad idea.
And the problem with that would be what?
Yeah, they
exactly.
get a lot of money out there.
I mean, I think even Oakland Park, experiencing what it has in the past 10 years with the large gay and lesbian community that has moved into its city, has seen a significant amount of gentrification. And of course, Wilton Manors is known throughout the area for the gentrification that the gay community has brought to that city as well. Sherry, let me ask you, tell me, here you are, an openly gay woman who is now serving in public office, and a member of the Republican Party, so you've kind of made it okay. I mean, I think you have. You've kind of made it okay to be gay and Republican. And
thanks, Dean.
No, well, coming from a Democrat, I have to say that. So, and I think it's because people see you as a person of integrity, an open-minded person. You don't come to this position with any preconceived ideas or goals that are politically motivated. You're there because you want to serve the community and create the balance that you feel that your background and your own experience can bring to bear as issues come before you. So I think that's, from an outsider's point of view, I think that's why people welcomed your voice, and we're very happy to see you elected. But now that you're elected, what kind of community do you see growing in Oakland Park? While we were off the air, we were chit-chatting, and the ladies were talking about, the dynamic of how the gay community has moved from other parts of the country and came to South Florida. Many of them started out in Miami Beach, because that's where all the glam was, and then they kind of migrated north. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that migration.
Well, we were joking about it, but I think it's largely true. Most of the guys came, from New York and other places in the Northeast down to South Beach in the day, and that gentrification, and then they kind of move on up to Wilton Manors, and then they meet somebody and move in together in Oakland Park, and that seems to be the.
Well, Wilton Manors was in Fort Lauderdale, Oakland Park area, was voted in some magazine as being the best place to come as you are, and because the necessity for having a certain look or being a certain way or being drawn into a specific lifestyle within the gay community was not a requirement. Obviously, there are so many different types of sub-communities within our community, different cultures, different things that pull people together. I always see an enormous variety of people who live within the city of Oakland Park or Wilton Manors. And but tell me how your role now, what do you think? Are you sending a message to women out there that we want you to?
I think that'll happen whether it's, by my intent or anyone else's. We were talking about this earlier, that I think that women are now in a unique position to be elected because of the credibility factor and a get-it-done factor. Women as moms and spouses get things done. They get
you
a
are
lot
a mom,
done.
aren't you?
I'm a mom and a spouse, and I get
mom
a
and a
lot done in a
spouse.
day.
Congratulations. Did you get married?
No.
But you're a mom.
Yes.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Tell us about your child.
It's a great job. It's a great job. My
So you
daughter
got
is
2
7.
full-time jobs, right?
Yeah. Three.
3.
Three.
Right?
Yeah, it keeps me busy, and it's
Right.
it's an absolute joy. You want to build communities that you can look back and you say you had a part in making, and that's maybe a goal of mine. And I see my little town, I'm fond of calling it the Mayberry in the metropolis, because it's tucked away in the middle of Fort Lauderdale, quite literally. It's a wonderful place for families, and I envision for it families of all kinds coming here to take advantage of the unfortunate situation with foreclosures. There's a great opportunity for gentrification, to take advantage of the amenities that our towns have, and parks and other things, and to build just a wonderful community of all kinds. And I see certainly my city as being one in which would be welcoming to all kinds of families to do that.
Well, here you are. You work for a very prominent law firm. You're a professional. You're a mom. You're a spouse. You've created a family life. Is that the image? Is that the goal that you're looking to create? And now, as city commissioner, do you feel that you are a role model in trying to draw other people to sort of, I wouldn't say copy, but certainly to aspire to the same level that you've achieved?
I've never thought at all.
Well, look at it. Look at it from another person's perspective. Yeah, well, look at it. I mean, look at the different levels of accomplishment you've achieved. You see it as an everyday experience, but from someone just starting out who's 25 years old and who wants to come to Florida and are you listening out there? And wants to come to Florida and who wants to say, well, where would be the best place for me to meet someone, buy a home, and start some sort of stable lifestyle. You're sending out the message that Oakland Park is the place to do this.
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so for all kinds of people who want to come down and be part of a community. This is a thriving community, and ours is, Wilton Manors and Oakland Park are literally adjacent to each other. They kind of bleed over into each other, and they're similar cultures.
Well, in fact, the Chamber of Commerce is called the Oakland Park Wilton Manors Chamber.
Yeah,
correct.
Right.
Well, Julie, let me ask you something. People have asked me. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, a reporter from a local NPR affiliate sat down with me and interviewed me for about an hour, which was only supposed to be a 10-minute interview. But I guess I was a little more garrulous than he thought I would be. But he asked me, how did Wilton Manors get started? Which is the question a lot of people ask. As it turns out, Georgie's Alibi was not the first successful business in Wilton Manors. I understand that actually the first successful bar in Wilton Manors was a lesbian bar. And it might have been before your time, but it was called The Other Side. Mm-hmm. And the other side happened to be the other side of my office.
Across from Piggly Wiggly.
Across from Piggly Wiggly. And which is now a vacant space, but it continues to make itself available for any future bar that might want to move in there. But in fact, it seems that the lesbian population found Wilton Manors, and then later, it became mixed with men as well as women, and that kind of spiked, I would say, probably in the late '90s. But tell me a little bit about your understanding of what was the attraction of people wanting to move to Wilton Manors, from what you understand.
Well, interestingly, Dean, there is a brand new book out on the city of Wilton Manors. You'll find mention of all the current commissioners in there, and I'll be happy to get a book for you.
Okay, thank you.
It is. Very
Will you
much,
sign it, please?
I'll have
Okay.
the author sign it.
Oh,
for
the
you.
author will
Yeah.
sign it. Okay.
I was looking at some figures like you about Georgie's, and in 1996 in Wilton Manors, the average home was $86,000.
And what year was that?
1996.
Okay.
96, 97. And at that time, Wilton Manors was a little-known city. It was
I
known.
call it the little town in the big city.
Little town in the big city. In 2007, at the peak of the real estate market, the average home price was $400,000. Now, I certainly believe that there were a number of women in Wilton Manors, and there remain a number of GLBT women and others in Wilton Manors. But I do believe it was the men who came into the city first. Again, there's an economic disparity, and there always has been an economic disparity between particularly gay men who often have a lot more expendable income.
Do they have more or spend more?
I think both. I think the earning power has always been greater until recently, and there's still a small disparity. And I do think they spend more, and they spend more in different areas typically than women do. So I believe that the men have come and given our city a great deal of credibility. Together
Through
with
their gentrification process?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Together with the wonderful baseline foundation of people that we have who've lived there forever, who have raised their families there, who have created 15 parks all on waterways. We have the most wonderful elementary school. So all of these things bring together that city that Sherry spoke about that is sustainable.
So you're saying that the original population, the indigenous population, having welcomed the gay population, that balance there is what keeps it together and what makes it the type of community that is what it makes it more attractive to those who eventually want to move there. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I think it is, yes, but it is. Both of those elements are necessary for a city to be sustainable. I don't believe that Wilton Manors can sustain itself as a thriving community city into the future if we are formed of one type of community.
Well, let's talk about where Wilton Manors is going. Commercially, it certainly has hit a few bumps in the road. I know on Wilton Drive, for those of you who've traveled to Wilton Manors, Wilton Drive is kind of the epicenter of activity for Wilton Manors. But we've seen a good deal of commercial space remaining vacant. There are some new businesses opening up, so that's a good thing. What is the City Commission doing to try to encourage more people to try to invest in your city? And who are they reaching out to?
We're doing a number of things, and I have to cite first, we do have the new Community Development Director, Heidi Shaffrin, who has made great strides in reaching out to the community, reaching out to new business, and designing the city commercially the way that we would like it to look. That her position was vacant for about a year and a half, and I think the city was at a deficit without her services or without the services of someone in that capacity. Along those same lines, we have also done a lot we now have a green building program. We have ways to facilitate community building, whether it be getting a building permit in a day or doing speedy LEED certified homes, getting those permitted a little bit more quickly.
But those are the nuts and bolts of once you've made the decision to come to Wilton Manors. Who are you marketing Wilton Manors to? Is there a program in place where there's a marketing effort?
There is now, and this is a recent committee that has been created, and it was created about 2 or 3 months ago. We have just now established its members. It's an economic development committee. And this group will be focusing on the economic development of Wilton Manors, including tourism, including the proper balance of the residential versus the commercial people groups in the city, which are always, not always, but often at odds with one another. Now, Dean, we also have always had, for the last number of years, a parking problem that is in the forefront. At the last commission meeting, we had the first reading of a $1.1 million bond, which will be, we'll do some bond financing in order to make possible the acquisition of certain land for typically and most probably surface lots.
And I understand that you have on the table zoning changes that you're going to vote on in the middle of December, in which you're going to change you're changing the permitted uses of certain zoning classifications to accommodate more parking, and now in areas now that are not permissible, because clearly parking is a problem in Wilton Manors.
There is an area, and there are 19 lots that have been redesignated to add 4 conditional uses to the zoning, and one of those conditions, there are 4: cafe, bookstore,
gallery, something like that.
One other, and then parking lot.
It was in the paper yesterday or the day before, I think it was talked about.
Parking lot is the 4th, and all of those 4 will only be allowed under conditional uses.
Condition being what?
Condition being what the conditions are on that use. For instance, if someone comes and says, I'd like to put a parking lot here, then the conditions could be buffering conditions, landscaping conditions, directional conditions, a host of conditions that can be put on the development in order to satisfy the city and certainly the commission of the rightness of the development.
Sherry, in Oakland Park, is the city, you and I actually attended a meeting a couple of Tuesdays ago, was it not? Where the city manager and its consulting group gave a presentation early one morning, in which we heard a presentation on the community development funds that were going to be targeted, the last batch of the money to be targeted towards projects. Now, I was there, you were there. It was an interesting presentation. It was kind of objective in terms of any particular targeted type of business. I think that do you feel that there's an opportunity for the LGBT community to grasp opportunities that Oakland Park is now presenting economically, to forge even a greater presence in Oakland Park and become a more of a consistent, have a more of a consistent role in in where it goes in Oakland Park? Tell me a little bit about what you think that opportunity exists.
Yeah, it's a very exciting plan. It has not yet been approved by the commission, although I anticipate that it will. And the vision is, with the consultants that we've hired, that we would create sort of a food mecca, if you will, like a permanent market with a culinary arts district, and it would be one of its kind in South Florida. And so think of everything, all the linkages that go with that, and think of how well that is complementary to our
Well, I know a few
communities.
foodies in the gay community, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, think of how well that fits in the area, and I think that could actually work.
So
We're excited
so
about it.
objectively, there's no real, it's not like they're gearing their economic plan to bring in gay people per se, but they're certainly bringing in or looking to bring in businesses that appeal to the gay community.
Yeah, well, the culinary arts district as a concept,
Right.
I think it appeals broadly.
Right.
Yeah.
And Lee, tell me a little bit about Margate in terms of, do you think that there are any opportunities that the Margate City Commission could entertain which would make Margate a place that would appeal to members of the gay community, or is that just not an interest right now in terms
Well, I think
of,
it's an interest for all cities to try to get any kind of residents that they can
Right.
get.
Having seen the
we have a-
success in Wilton Manors and Oakland Park and what the gay community can bring to a city, there was an episode I remember on Will and Grace where Will bought a house in a upstate New York small town, and as soon as the neighbors heard that the gays were moving in, like they all wanted to buy real estate. It was like they just thought it was the greatest thing, and so. Do you think you have a role on the city commission to kind of get people to focus on something like this?
I have been a lousy recruiter since I was gay.
You don't
I
give
never
out
got
toasters?
a toaster oven or anything like that. Margate is so diverse in just the kinds of people we have. We have every kind of community that you want to think of. And it all blends in pretty nicely. So to go after one specific group, I think it would be a disjustice to the city, because we get so much from everything. I think more people are being comfortable with Margate, which used to be called Mudgate for years. So they're being more comfortable with Margate because they do see that it's a nice place to live. It's a nice community where, we have a redevelopment area that we're going to redevelop that. Hopefully someday it'll be a great place for the residents to go, as well as people driving down 441, because we're right on 441. So I tell everybody I'm going to put T-shirts out that say "Meet me in Margate," because we are smack dab in the middle of getting to the turnpikes and getting anywhere you want.
Right.
So. You can come to Margate, and then we'll go to Wilton Manors, and we go to Oakland Park, and we go to Fort Lauderdale.
Do you think Margate has an appeal in a way that perhaps Wilton Manors and Oakland Park doesn't? Because, and that is to say, the appeal that Margate might have is the fact that you say meet me in Margate, but in reality, as far as the gay community is concerned, it's not really on their radar.
No.
And maybe that appeals to some people in the gay community to think that they can live in a community where they're not going to be so obvious. So
it's possible. I lived in Fort Lauderdale, just south of Wilton Manors. I lived in Oakland Park at one point in my life. I moved to Margate because they had sidewalks. I had my mother living with me as well, and I had 2 kids that I wanted to raise, and the school was right down the street. So
very practical reasons you moved there.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I think other people, they look at more things. I constantly tell people look at the millage rate because they want to see what they're getting for their millage rate. The police and fire departments, those are given. You expect to have a city to have a good police and a good fire. When you look at your millage rate, you're looking at schools and parks and programs that the cities offer. And so one of my big things is make sure we offer enough for what our millage rate is.
Because it's always been my theory that the reason why Wilton Manors developed the way it did was because it started to experience a sort of a seepage away from Fort Lauderdale, where Fort Lauderdale was always the epicenter or the focus of publicity, of news, the gay rights movement, and all that during the 90s and late 80s. And a lot of people were not comfortable with that. A lot of the people in the gay community were not comfortable with that. So they felt they needed to get out of the limelight, so to speak, and then move away. And some place like Wilton Manors, with its less expensive real estate and its sort of being tucked away where no one really even heard of Wilton Manors at some point, that became a comfort zone for them. And I'm wondering if Margate might also represent that comfort zone as people listen tonight and hear that you are now the role model for people who can aspire to, public office and feel comfortable and know that their colleagues are accepting and understanding, and that this is a place where, you don't have to just focus on the more well-known areas like Oakland Park and Wilton Manors and Fort Lauderdale. Now Margate can be a point of destination. Has that ever come across your mind?
It's a great place to raise kids. I raised 2 of them, and we'll talk when they hit the teens. But yeah, you should be.
All right. Well, your comments have been really, really great, and I have to tell you, your a pride and joy for our community to be there openly and making the tremendous contributions that you're each making in each of your respective cities. It's great to hear you each talk to one another, especially when we were not on the air, to hear you exchange ideas and thoughts and to understand, let the community know that you are important people who are going to make important changes in our world. So I thank you all for coming tonight and for being here. And I want to announce to our listeners that next week we are going to have a conversation regarding gay adoption, and our guest will be Rob Rosenwald and his plaintiffs who appeared in the lawsuit, who eventually got the Florida adoption law overturned. And it's going to be a very exciting show. I'm very excited about that. So thank you. I appreciate your being here tonight, and have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.